Hey guys, I'm here. I'm trying to give my washing machine time to finish up, but I'm here and I will get started in just a few moments, okay? Okay, I think we're safe now. I hope everybody's having a good afternoon. Hey there, fruit fly. So I just randomly, I have had so much going on, like good stuff, but just super, super busy. And hey, haven't really been able to jump on here and just be live. But I had a very recent, um, we've had a case locally that I have just been immersed in, as most others locally have been as well, because it's huge for this area. And then as I was listening to some of the testimony, one of the specialists went on and was really giving this deep dive forensic like analysis of phone pings, talking about cell towers, and basically how they were able to pinpoint down. And so I'm going to have to give you a brief overview, very, very brief, because it's a very complex case, but I think it will, at least hopefully it will open your minds a little bit to just the significance and the importance of why we ask some of the questions that we ask. Um, so before I get into too much of it, can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys just like thumbs up or let me know if the audio is good? I'm showing it looks good on this end, so I just want to make sure. Um, the case that I'm referring to is the Florida versus Adelson case that just recently wrapped up. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Many people who have watched this case unfold knows that this has not been an easy feat. It has, whether you like our prosecuting attorney or not here in Florida, I can tell you one thing: she is relentless, and she is not the person that would ever let a fight, like, she's not going back down from one. And so let me just share with you. I'm going to add this screen just so that when you're listening to some of the testimony, you'll understand the significance of what this guy is talking about. Okay. So here, you're going to see basically it's a suspect lineup of um, the players in this case, if you will. So I'm trying to figure out. Here we go. So Dan Markel, you can see he is the victim. He's the one over here with the red letters over the top of him. Okay. He was married to Wendy, who's in the top left. They both were lawyers, law professors here at FSU. Um, lived in a nice little neighborhood here. Then you have this, well, even this chart's kind of confusing. So I don't want to confuse everybody, but let me just spell it out for you. Wendy and Dan were married. They got a divorce. They have two children together. Wendy wanted to relocate down to Miami to be closer to her family, and ex-husband was creating a huge issue with that. Understandable. The kids are young. Um, but from what it sounds like through days of testimony and years of testimonies, um, there was some give and some take on whether or not they were going to be able to make that move happen collectively, and no one lose time with their kids, because we know how contentious um, custody cases can get. So leaving that to the side, they got divorced, and there was this impending custody battle, like this custody battle going on. Well, apparently Wendy complains to her mom, which is Donna, and Donna then complains or relays it to Charlie, who is Wendy's brother. So you've got Donna and Harvey are the grandma and grandpa. You've got Wendy, who's the mom, and you've got Charlie, who is Wendy's brother. So basically, grandma complains to her son. Her son then tells his girlfriend and asks around about a hitman. Girlfriend points to her baby's father as a hitman, and they have an accomplice that goes with them. Now, that's a whole lot of players, but the reason I'm sharing this with you is because count them up, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4. They just prosecuted in separate trials, guys. 4 of them now have guilty verdicts with first-degree murder charges, serving life sentences, in addition to extra charges that are giving them 30 plus years beyond their life sentences. 4 of them. They have enough evidence, in my opinion, that they're fixing to go after the grandmother next, and then they'll go after the grandfather, and then they ultimately will get the wife. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is because I want you to see that this is a complex case where there were multiple players in play with a conspiracy, if you will, to commit a crime. And they all freaking did it. Like, in my opinion, it'll be interesting to see how Georgia, our prosecuting attorney, like, goes after the next 3 cases. But when I tell you she's been on it. I was a little nervous with the brother this time. But man, like, case in point is that if she can bring down 7 people, or let's just go with what she's already done. This prosecuting attorney has found guilty 4 different verdicts, 4 different sets of juries, 4 different trials. They've all been found guilty of first-degree murder. She's been able to do that using cell phone data, phone pings, connections as far as locations and proximities. Then what in the world happened in the Watts case? And furthermore, something that I've noticed a lot by watching this Adelson trial was the amount of times that they referred back to the discovery. They referred back to the manuscripts. Like, they keep going back to, oh, well, do you remember your testimony? No, well, here's the paper, read your testimony. And they would read it. And then, of course, the people on the stand would have to say, oh, well, that has to be what I said because it's typed out, it's written, that's what's on the record. So guys, when we are asking these questions about why is it that we can listen to the audio or the videos of the interviews, because they sure were not interrogations, and it does not align or match up with what's on the paper, this was something I consulted with my friend who works in law enforcement, and she was telling me that right there would be a huge, huge nightmare in trial. And I knew it would be a big deal, but I don't think I realized it until I watched this trial, because there is no way that in a Watts case trial, no matter who they decided to bring up on charges, there is no way that they could take that discovery and say, oh, here's what you said, read it. So keep in mind, this trial happened back to the Adelson. This case happened, the murder took place in 2014. So this is 4 years before we had the Watts. Okay, so if in 2014, it has taken 9 years to try and convict 4 of the people within this case. So I think this July was 9 years, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, something I wanted to share with you is I'm gonna play some of the video from the trial, And I want you to be able to listen to the specialist as he explains it, and we'll discuss it along the way. Okay. Hey, Becky Boo, welcome. I'm so happy to see you here. I'm going to scroll up just a little bit because I know I've missed a few people. Hey, ATS. Guys, this was just really, really interesting to me. So I am going to watch and listen as it plays along, but please drop questions in the comments or in the comment section, and then I'll keep scrolling through and we'll discuss them. Okay. So let me see if I can get over here to this video. Okay. All right, I want to make sure you guys can see this. So let me know, can you see this tab? All right, perfect. I see it now.
Certainly. I have a little over 1,675 hours of general technical training across kind of all of our disciplines. And then I have just under 900 hours of training specific to communication record analysis. And that, again, involves the collection of records or obtaining the records, the various types of analysis that we do, including location, estimating the location of a handset, or calling analysis. I instruct other law enforcement officers and analysts across the state and really across the country in communication record analysis. I believe that's.
And what is communication record analysis?
Communication record analysis is kind of a general term for what we can do with the records that are primarily, we're talking about the records that come from communication carriers, like our AT&T, Verizon, cell phone carriers is primarily what we talk about. We also do get records from forensic analysis of phones. We can add that in, but primarily, again, the carrier records. And from the various types of reports they're able to give us, we can do analysis such as who a handset, and I say handset for cell phone, communicates with most frequently. Again, estimated locations, approximately where was a handset when a certain call was placed. The calling pattern analysis, who calls who, when, all of those kind of things. Really, there's a variety of analysis that we can do with those records, kind of pertaining to whatever the investigation needs.
And have you ever testified where you've given an opinion in court in the field of historical communication record analysis?
In my opinion, he totally knew he was screwed with this part. Just saying.
I have, yes.
About how many times?
101.
Judge, those are all my questions as to his qualifications in that field, if defense has any voir dire.
Very well. Mr. Rushbaum?
No, Your Honor.
Is there any objection to the witness providing an opinion in the field of historic communication analysis?
No, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, the witness will be permitted to provide you with an opinion in this area of historic communication analysis. You may continue.
All right, so we're going to get to your analysis in a minute, but before we do that, I just have to move certain things into evidence. So we're going to go through that. All right, so you told us that in your position at TPD, you often pull records, call detail records from phone companies.
That's correct, yes.
Are these types of records kept in the normal course of business for phone companies?
They are.
And are they kept by an automated system, by a computer that has knowledge of those events in the records?
Yes.
And are you familiar with how to interpret and read those records?
Yes, I am.
In this case, have you reviewed the phone records of what's been marked and shown to defense and you in previous proceedings? And I'm just going to go through all the numbers and names. States Exhibit 85, Luis Rivera called.
Now, guys, as they go through each of these names, she will explain a little bit about them, but that's why I put up that that poster with the different players, if you will, in this case, because there's a lot of moving parts, but that's kind of precisely why I decided to do this live stream on this subject, is because some people seem to have a problem or an issue with grasping the fact that more than one person would even fathom committing such a heinous act. And I think it's important to make note in understand that, I mean, this is a case that soon, very soon, it will be one that I really dive into because there's so to talk about. But what ends up happening in this case is every time I get ready to cover it, the next trial starts, and then you just have your hands full. So anyway, I say that because as she's describing each player, I don't want you to get overwhelmed. It's more so I want you to really take in his testimony and just how he's actually going to show you like how they triangulate and pinpoint it down. And this is local to me, so I am actually when I show you some of the video footage that they have, like it's so surreal that any of this happened locally. But I just want you guys to really take into account the fact that if they had even remotely shredded or dove into the phone records like they needed to, there is a good prosecuting attorney, someone skilled and eager to seek justice would have latched onto that case just like this one did. And I don't understand how in the world it's one of those things other than anything outside of immunity, which we will talk about, and I'll share, maybe not this live, but I'll share some more on that angle as well, because I learned something new in this case while watching it. So sorry, rant over.
Call detail records, States Exhibit 86, Sigfredo Garcia. Call detail records, States Exhibit 87, Wendy Adelson. 88, Donna Adelson. 89, Charlie Adelson. 90, Harvey Adelson. 91, Catherine McBanoa. And 92, Daniel Markel. Call detail records.
Yes.
Okay. And there right in front of you on the witness stand, I've left a chart that's already been admitted into evidence. I believe it states 59. Does it say 59 on the pink sticker there?
It does, yes.
Okay. Just to kind of save us time and without having to recite every number, do the numbers below each picture on that chart reflect the numbers for the call detail records we received for each one of these parties?
Yes.
Okay. All right. In addition to the call detail records we spoke about, did you also review traffic tickets received by Sigfredo Garcia, car rental agreements from Comfort Rental and Save Gas, surveillance video from Premier Gym, documents from Spirion GPS, Comfort Rental, Save Gas, as well as the iCloud of Charlie Adelson and the Cellbrite of Wendy Adelson's cell phone?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you about those last two items in just a second. But for the call detail records and the businesses I named out, when you receive records from a business, does it contain a certification from that business verifying that it is a legitimate record from that business? Did the records in this case have those items?
Yes, all the carriers provide or can provide a business record certification attesting to the things we mentioned earlier.
Okay. And as far as the Wendy Adelson Cellbrite, what is a Cellbrite?
Cellbrite is kind of a catch-all name now. We do forensic analysis of mobile devices and computers. And there's a number of tools that allow us to do that forensic analysis that actually interact with the handset and allow us to retrieve the information that's on it. Cellbrite is one of those, and it is one of the tools that we use. So we kind of say a Cellbrite report is a forensic report. So once we extract that information, then the software goes through and kind of analyzes it for us and says, well, this is a text message and this is a call log and this is a Wi-Fi access point, whatever it may be, and creates a report for us that we're able to review and to be able to search through and print out excerpts, whatever we want to do. But it's a tool that allows us to analyze the results of that forensic extraction from the device.
And was that forensic extraction of Wendy Adelson's cell phone done on the day of Dan Markel's murder, July 18, 2014, when she came to Tallahassee Police Department?
Yes, it was.
All right. And then at some point during this investigation, I mentioned this iCloud. Was a subpoena sent to Apple to get the information from Charlie Adelson's iCloud?
I believe it would have been a search warrant, but yes.
Search warrant. My apologies. And when we received the information from that iCloud, were there
So right there, they're mentioning getting warrants for the iClouds. You know, that's something when I was looking through the discovery recently, you know, they showed warrant for the truck, warrant for, I think it was like computer, like the laptops and things like that. But the extent of going after, like, yeah, they did the Cellbrite with the cell phone, but you know, did they ever actually pull up the iClouds on all of their phones? They all had Apples. And in the Watts case, you don't ever, at least I haven't recently. I would have to dive right back into the discovery again, but I've yet to hear them even remotely utter that there was ever warrants for the iCloud and what was found in the iCloud. Has anybody else caught any of that? ATS News, I saw you in here earlier. I don't know if you've come across that or not, whether or not they actually did a full-blown warrant search of their iClouds would be interesting to note. But he's about to dive into the breakdown, which is really interesting to me.
messages in that iCloud?
Yes.
All right. And what is an iCloud for those who don't know?
Again, kind of a general term, but for iOS users or Apple users, they have the ability to back up most of the contents from their device to the iCloud, Apple's cloud storage. With a legal demand, we were able to recover that or be provided that backup information from the cell phones of Mr. Adelson. Again, Cellbrite being the software we use to analyze that, to kind of parse everything out and allow us to review it and do the analysis of that iCloud return.
Okay. Did you base your opinions in this case on the records that you received from those businesses that I named out, from the extracts from the iCloud, and also from the call detail records that you received from the phone carriers?
Yes.
All right. All of this information, was this voluminous amount of information, hundreds or even thousands of pages?
Definitely thousands of pages.
Okay. Did you prepare a summary in order to show the jury what these records say about the phone activity and locations of all these parties, and that you'll be relying on for your testimony here today?
I did.
All right. And did that summary include the call detail records, the business records we talked about, and also just certain extracts from Wendy Adelson's cell phone and the iCloud of Charlie Adelson?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to move in item 64, the comfort rental contract, 65, another comfort rental contract, 66, Spirion GPS information, 80, traffic ticket of Sigfredo Garcia, as well as 85 through 92, which are all of the call detail records that I described earlier when I named out each person.
Any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Please go through the numbers again.
Yes,
They
sir.
are admitted.
That should be 85 through 92, 64, 65, 66, and 80. And then finally, this summary that we're going to see where you combined all of that information. Did you create a PDF version to be printed and moved into evidence today?
Yes.
All right. Now, do you also have a version via PowerPoint that we can see here in the courtroom altogether?
I do. Yes.
All right, Judge, at this time, I would move his summary into evidence. This is State's Exhibit 67. There's going to be both a flash drive containing this and then a physical copy.
Any objection to 67?
No, Your Honor.
State 67 is admitted.
All right, so if you could pull up the summary, the PowerPoint on your end, and we'll get started. It is
on my
okay.
end.
So let me see what I need. Oh, I know what I need. Okay, so you told us that about part of your job is getting these call detail records from phone companies. Can you describe to us what these call detail records look like and what's contained in them?
Certainly. So this is a sample of call detail records. This is one page from the many records that we received. And you can see there's a lot of information here on the page, but there's certain sections that we kind of look at for our analysis. So here on the left-hand side, we have the date and time of events. And when I say events, it could be a voice call, it could be a text message, or it could be a data session. Different carriers provide records for different types of events. But in this case with AT&T, we generally see records with voice, text, and data. But we have the date and time of that event. Sometimes our records are provided in different time zones, and we have to do an adjustment to our local time. But in the older records here that we have, these records were actually provided in our local time. Some of the later records we had were not. So that section, again, tells us the date and time of the event. So if we're looking for something that happened on a certain day, that's the section that we go to.
Pay attention to this
The
breakdown.
next section here involves who's calling who. These are the phone numbers involved. And one of those would be our target number, or the number that the records are for. And the other number would be the person that's either calling that person or being called by that person. So we see also what they call their seizure time, how long it takes to connect the call, and then the elapsed time, how long the call lasts. We will do a lot of summaries of call detail records. It's easier to read when we kind of do it in a different format that allows us to put a name with a number so we know kind of who's calling who. It's a little bit easier to read. But those summaries will come from that section of the records as far as what phone numbers are communicating with whom else. And then the other section that we have here is the location section. So this is the cell site or cell tower that the handset was communicating with for that particular event. And they give us both a unique identifier for it, a number that we can go to a key or a spreadsheet and look up. And in the case of AT&T, they also provide us the latitude and longitude of that cell site. So when we do location analysis, it kind of looks like this. We can just take that latitude and longitude they give us, or which we looked up and confirmed in that key, and we can plot it on the map. And here it's just represented by this blue dot. But that would be the location of the cell site that this handset was communicating with during that particular sample event.
How about that?
Sometimes just knowing where the cell site is sufficient, and we don't really need to know any more. We can do kind of our location analysis. We know this phone was generally in the South Florida area. But our cell sites are almost all broken down into multiple sides or sectors. And so that means they have antennas that are facing different direction, and a handset will communicate with one of those sectors. And we're also provided with that information in the call detail records. So not only do we know where the cell site is, but we know kind of which side of the cell site a handset was on for particular events. And sometimes we will look at that to help narrow down where a handset could have been. So sometimes we'll represent them. You can see here, the large blue arrow would represent the sector that the handset was using. The smaller black arrows would represent the other cell sites on that, or other sectors on that cell site that were not being used. But that kind of gives us an idea of how that cell site is divided up. 3 being the most common kind of division of a cell site.
Can you say exactly or precisely on a map where a certain handset is?
No.
Okay. Do you say whether a handset is consistent with a location or inconsistent?
Yes, generally we're provided with an address, and we're asked to say, could this handset have been at this address, this scene, this incident? And so we look at where the cell site is located. We look at the sector the handset is communicating with, and make an opinion as to whether that sector of that cell site services that incident location. And if it does, if we think it's within the coverage area of that particular cell site and sector, then we would say, yes, your incident location is included. If that address were to be somewhere far outside of the cell site that we do not believe the signal from that cell site could reach a handset, then we would say no, that location is excluded, or the handset could not have been there.
If a phone is out of battery or turned off or just not being used at that time, are you able to get locations for that handset at those times?
So that's a good point. We can only make estimations about locations when we have events with location. If they're not in the records, then we don't know where a handset could be. And so yes, in some of those situations, if a handset is not being used, it may still generate data records. So we may still see location information, even if no one is actively making a phone call or sending a text message. And with some of the carriers, we don't see those. We don't see the passive events, and we may not have.
Now, guys, keep in mind when it was during the interrogation towards the end with Kessinger, and they're discussing their cell phone, and she's talking about the chip because, you know, like she broke the darn thing. She claims it was broken, but anyway, that's a different argument for a different day. But they discussed with her, and she, the investigator tells her that, you know, certain carriers, you can go back and get old messages, and then some of them, once they're deleted, they're gone. And I just felt like it was interesting. I feel like this officer gives a better explanation for what that means. And I also feel like it was important to hear his breakdown about, can you pinpoint a specific location, basically from a phone ping? And he's telling you, you know, I mean, this is again 4 years prior to the Watts case. This happened in 2014, but they were able to gather enough data that would give them latitude and latitudinal, excuse me, can talk. They would give them coordinates that would basically pinpoint where that phone connection was made. So to think that even if it was something as simple as Kessinger drove by there that morning and her phone connected, or she turned it on that morning, or how that worked, whatever that case may have been, that would have been that would have been mind-blowing to have to defend that, or to have a prosecuting attorney go after that on the witness stand. I mean, how would you explain that away? And I feel like this was definitely an area where they did such a huge disservice in this case. And it could have simply been she just, you know, was like, well, I'm going to go tell Shanann, blah, 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 blah. And she shows up that morning, and that's why she was there. It could have been something just that simple. However, what the heck? Like there's absolutely nothing. They never went further with it. They never questioned her on it, anything like that. And so I think it's important to, just as we're listening to this, reflecting back on what we know about the Watts case and what was done and wasn't done. It's painful to me to even remotely think that the families in the Watts case believe that they have justice and it prevailed, when I listen to a testimony like this and I realize that there is so much more that they could have done. And I'm not saying that one life is worth more or less than 3 or 4, but in this case, you had one, one victim, and in the Watts case, we had total of 4. And it's just like the amount of work that our prosecuting attorney here in Florida has done for this case compared to what the DA was just so ready and eager to shut down out in Colorado, it's sickening. Or at least to me it is. I mean, it would not sit well with me if it were my family. I know that.
Have location information for some time. But yes, we only can make that determination when we have an actual record with location.
All right, so let's get into this case. Can you walk us through Dan Markel's known locations the day that he was murdered on July 18th, 2014?
Yes, we knew that he had been in 3 distinct locations that morning, one being his house, the second being where he dropped his children off at daycare, and then the third being Premier Health and Fitness Center, where he was before returning home. So we knew we had those 3 locations.
Did TPD believe that whoever shot Dan Markel was at least one of these same locations or more that he was at that morning?
Yes, we did have evidence that he was being followed, at least at the last location. So we did believe that it was a probability that the suspects were possibly at all three of those locations around the same time Mr. Markel would have been.
Okay. And the last location with the surveillance video you're speaking of is the Premier Gym?
Yes.
Where the Prius was following him?
Yes.
All right. So how did TPD try to identify who was in that Prius?
The first thing that we did is what we call a tower dump, which is kind of a generic term for collecting all of the events that were processed through any cell sites that could service a particular location. So we gave the carriers those three addresses and the time frame that we believe the suspects would have been there, and said, please give us all the events that your cell towers processed and the phone numbers associated with those. And so that we could try to do some analysis and determine if, again, those suspects were following him in those locations.
And which phone companies had cell sites in the area?
At that time, we had T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, and AT&T.
Okay, so those four companies?
Yes.
So TPD, you said, then subpoenaed those records to get all of the numbers with events in that location.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So state has marked and shown to defense, and the witness in previous proceedings states 93, which is the tower dump of T-Mobile, states 94, tower dump of AT&T, states 95, tower dump of Verizon, states 96, tower dump of Sprint, which all contain certifications of business records. Did you review the tower dumps of all those four companies in your analysis in this case?
I did, yes.
Okay. At this time, I would move states 93 through 96 into evidence of certified business records.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
States 93 through 96 are admitted at this time.
So was this analysis?
I do feel like I need to say that keep in mind, this is the fourth trial that this information has been used in, and it is coming back with a conviction every single time. So for anyone to think that this type of information is not vital or important to a jury trial, I mean, would be sadly mistaken. And I'm going to show you, we'll come back to him, but I want to show you. So he's going to talk about the triangulation of the calls, and you kind of see where that little cluster is. And what I'm going to show you is some of the surveillance footage of where they actually, basically it was all amidst that ping, they were able to find the vehicle. They were able to find the hitman's vehicle following Dan Markel. They literally sat in the parking lot, waited on him to finish his workout. And the creepiest thing is, like, it's so surreal because I used to work out at that gym. Like when you see it on the video, it's scary because you just never know. Like these things, I know we talk about these cases on YouTube and through channels and, you know, on Facebook discussion groups and things like that. But that's why you hear me say all the time, these are real people and these are real lives with emotions, because you never know. Like the same year that all of this was taking place, I was a member at the same gym. And it's a nice side of town. And the roads that we see the suspects driving down are the same roads that, like, I take my kids to school sometimes. And so it really, really just kind of brought it full circle that, like, I mean, we talk about these cases, but you guys, we have to keep that human factor in there. Like it's not just a headline, it's not just a story. So I'm going to share with you the surveillance footage. And I'm showing this because I feel like in the Watts case, the phone pings were extremely neglected. And I will share with you something that I found out with the interview with law enforcement that I did recently. And that is, do you guys know how when you go through, like you're on the toll road or something like that, and you go through and it takes a picture of, hey guys, you know how you go through the toll road and you don't have to pay the toll, but it like takes a picture of your license plate. You guys know what I'm talking about? Well, in some states, you have to have a front license plate and a rear license plate because that's how they make sure that they get your tag number so they can send you your, your ticket or your bill or whatever you want to call it. Or these crazy fools, now they just direct deposit or withdraw it out of your bank account. It's crazy. But it was explained to me that the reason why we may not have had those intersection cameras, because people have raised the question about cameras in Colorado and at the intersections, and why did they not capture any? Why did none of the cameras capture the watts on, on their cameras? And so I asked my friend in law enforcement about it, and she said, well, the kicker is those are only triggered if there's a bolo out. So like during that early morning hours, there was not any reason for those cameras to be recording or maintaining what they were capturing. But once the bolo went out for Shanae and the girls, I believe even then there was not a vehicle attached to the case. And so therefore they didn't really know what they were going to be recording and holding on to it for. And that's why we don't have those intersection cameras that were up over the top of, the red lights and things like that. Because yeah, ideally, if we could have even seen into the back of his truck, like from an aerial view, I think that would have eliminated a lot of questions. We would have been able to see if there was more than one person in the truck that morning. It would have taken care of a lot of those questions. But it's important to note that, and I learned, it was something new for me to learn as well, that those cameras are only triggered if as long as law enforcement puts like a bolo or some type of alert and they actually key in. It's like when you see it on the interstate and it's got like a tag number, it's a code gray, and they tell you like the make and model of the car. Once one of those goes out, then the cameras are activated in that area and they start recording for a set period of time. So hope that answers some questions regarding watts and why we don't have some of those intersection those intersection cameras, why we don't have any of that footage. And it's simply because it doesn't record that way. They're not consistently recording. They only are recording if there's an alert out for a tag or a specific type of vehicle. So I say that I'm going to switch from this officer over to the surveillance footage. We'll watch it's only just a couple of minutes. We'll watch it and then we'll finish up with the detective back over. Before he dives into this, I'll tell you guys, this is called genius. I'm not a fan of where I live. I am this no surprise to most people who actually know me. I'm not very keen on being here in the city. But I will tell you, mad props to law enforcement on this case, because when I tell you they were hunting down these suspects, guys, I just explained why they don't have it off of, like the intersection cameras and stuff. They find them on the buses. the city bus cameras is how they end up capturing some of this footage. And it is insane how they literally follow the suspect's vehicle all the way to the primary road that you turn off to go down the victim's road to his house. So just thought I'd put that out there. Uh-oh. Change our
Okay, and those images are fair and accurate clips or portions of the Premier Gym surveillance video.
That's correct.
Judge, I'd asked to introduce into evidence that Premier video surveillance footage at this time, which I believe is 83. We checked that.
I could be completely wrong, but I think this officer is just giddy because 9 years of this case, he
States
knows
83, Your
how
Honor.
damning this
And that's
evidence
slated
is.
for what did it say by 83? It's in the form of a disc, Your Honor, but I'd ask for permission to publish by way of the laptop. All right, if you'll kind of walk us through what we're looking at here, and we may need to pause when he starts talking.
This is from the roof of the Premier Gym. This is off of the north side facing toward the Fresh Market, that area. If you're familiar with that area, Fresh Market's off to the right. There's an entrance to the right of the screen, and there's also the main entrance, which is way further left of the screen that you can't see here.
All right, but this is a portion of the parking lot that's where the cars are lined up there.
That's correct. Those
Okay.
are vehicles parked in the parking lot of the gym.
All right, let's publish. Okay, we're seeing a blue circle around a dark vehicle. Could you tell us what that indicates?
That is Mr. Markel's vehicle.
And this is him entering the gym at 9:11
That's correct.
a.m.?
He just came into the parking lot and is going around to the front side of the gym.
All right, now what are we looking at?
This is just a different angle, a little bit further back, and this is Mr. Markel immediately preceding the video we just saw, where he's coming into screen, coming into the front of the gym.
And is he going to park somewhere?
Yes, he parks right behind that American flag.
Right here, guys. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse.
All right, that was 9:12. What is this camera angle?
This is the same angle. It's just a little bit further to the left, and that is the front of the gym right there, where the green Prius just drove right in front of the front door of the gym.
Okay, so they entered the parking lot through different entrances.
That's correct. They entered over off of the west side of the parking lot.
All right, so we see the Prius here, and we know where Mr. Markel's parked there behind the flagpole. What is that?
Look at how close,
Correct. He's
guys.
still in the vehicle, just exited the vehicle there, I believe.
All right, so the blue circle indicates that's him getting out of his vehicle.
Correct.
And where's the Prius at this time?
The Prius continued on through the parking lot.
Guys, especially ladies, if this does not give you a firm reminder to be aware of your surroundings, this man, I mean, he had no idea that this was coming by any means, but it's, I don't know, it just leaves me, the footage here is what probably had the biggest impact on me throughout this entire trial. And it's unfortunate that I feel like we didn't get different angles of the Watts case, because there were Ring doorbell cameras. There were other angles and options and different views. And we saw that in Nate's footage and stuff like that. And why any of that was not released or put out there is beyond me. Like, where's the parking lot footage like this of Kessinger showing up to work that morning? That's what I would like to know.
on the north side. And
All right, now we're at 9:13 a.m. Is that Mr. Markel in the red?
yes, it is.
Do we have any reason to believe that any suspects entered the gym?
No, we do not.
How long was Professor Markel inside the gym?
I believe about an hour and a half. I believe it's about 10:38 when he leaves, somewhere around
It's
there.
actually a very nice gym.
All right, and what are we looking at here outside at 9:16 a.m.?
9:16, the green Prius is still driving through the parking lot, but it's coming back from where it had passed through. Coming back toward the gym.
I know this is probably a little longer than some of you have anticipated, but it's just good police work. And I wanted to share this because this is definitely something that was lacking
This is
in the Watts case.
on the south side of the parking lot of the gym. And the green Prius just drove through there and is driving around the parking lot still. Again, the vehicle is turned around and is coming back toward the gym in the same parking lot.
It's just circling around. About to get hit.
Getting a wreck there.
Just missed.
Too bad that guy didn't ping him.
Okay, what's happening here?
This is Mr. Markel exiting the lobby of the gym, coming through the lobby.
It's just so surreal to think that someone's just going on about their day and like it's just normal. You know, like it's just another day.
All right, now at 10:34, what do we see?
We see Mr. Markel walking away from the front doors of the parking into the parking lot toward his vehicle.
And you guys keep in mind, their timeline started when they got the 911 call. Again, for those of you just now joining us, I'm showing some footage from another case and just sharing with you the forensics and the evidence and the breakdown of what law enforcement put together for this one single case. And it has now tried and convicted 4 different individuals for first-degree murder. And it's all using the same technology that was very much available 4 years later when the Watts case happened, yet we have zero effort to even remotely try to put a case together like this.
All right, so we saw Mr. Markel's vehicle leaving. Is that the Prius that was back there in that orange circle?
That's correct. They were in the far northwest part of the parking lot parked. And when he exited, they started to exit. and he exited on the Village Square Boulevard exit.
Right there by Books a Million for those local.
So we never saw anybody exit the Prius during the surveillance video.
No, we did
They
not.
stayed in the car the whole time.
That's correct.
This next part is just
Were
so
you able to learn
so
anything
intriguing.
about the suspect vehicle from the surveillance images as far as the color?
We were able to determine the approximate year range of that type of vehicle based on the body style, going through the Toyota dealership and other experts. We were
Another
able to
Toyota.
determine that it was a 2006 to 2009 Toyota Prius with a silver pine mica is the name of the paint, which is kind of a light green.
Were you able to learn anything or find any other surveillances to establish anything about the route the victim took to and from the gym?
Yes, we were.
What evidence was
Just
that?
wait until you
We were
guys
able
see the
to obtain
bus images.
city bus video. All the city
Here,
buses
it's
had
like
video on
trying
the
to show it. I'm
exterior
trying
and the
to
interior
not
of
get
them.
too far
We
ahead.
went back along the route that he took, and we believe he took, and reviewed bus footage video of that and found footage of both vehicles.
All right, and just to try to get our timeline as narrow as we can, this gym video ends at 10:38 a.m. What time did the 911 call come in?
Came in, I believe, 11:02.
Listen at that
And-
timeline, guys.
Have you had an opportunity to review the exhibit, State's Exhibit 84, with the video from the buses that's been put together similarly to how we did the gym surveillance?
Yes, I have.
And is it fair and accurate?
It is.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce State's, let me check on the exhibit numbers, 84, correct? 84, which is the bus video clips.
Any objection?
Okay.
States 84 is admitted.
What are bus videos? Where are cameras mounted on city buses?
On the exterior and the interior of the buses, and it's for safety purposes and for review purposes for the city.
How are you
Color
able
on
to
them,
know
some notes.
how to find this stuff?
We were able to find out which routes the bus took, but which buses took which route at which times. So we looked for that exact bus route along Thomasville Road during that time period.
Okay, so did you have to look through quite a bit of footage to get the little bits we're going to look at?
Yes, the team did.
Okay. All right. Permission to publish States 84, Your Honor.
You may.
There's gonna order, and you'll literally get to drive through town right up to
The actual exhibit.
the last turn before the suspects get to the house.
All right. So where are we right here on the video?
This is right in front of the Circle K gas station, which is right on Thomasville Road at the Capitol Circle flyover. I believe it's Maclay Commerce Boulevard is the actual road that they're on.
All right. So if we're the bus, we're on Maclay Commerce.
That's correct. And the Circle K is to the right, and right in front of us is Thomasville Road with the divider where Capitol Circle flyover starts.
And what does the blue circle indicate?
That is the vehicle of Mr. Markell.
What time are we seeing?
Look
it
at that
pass
discovery.
area?
That is at 10:44.
This is one of many.
Okay. So is that consistent with going back home from the gym?
That's correct.
Okay. And this is bus. We've got a couple different buses in play here, right? This one's 505.
Correct. 505.
Proceed, please.
That is Miss Georgia Kappelman. She is a beast.
And what does the orange circle indicate?
That is the green Prius that was in the parking lot of Premier Gym.
I must state the irony that we have FSU, Florida State University here, and the person wearing the hat is the University of Florida hat.
So this is on Thomasville Road heading south, just south of the I-10. This is the entrance where the hospital is to the right. It's a red light.
Look at that clear image.
By hospital, you're talking about the new ER.
The new ER, exactly, right by I-10 and Thomasville Road.
Were you able to get the tag number from this image from the bus?
No, unfortunately, we weren't. The resolution on these cameras are set really low because they're saved on DVRs, and they don't want them to roll over too fast. So they set the resolution extremely low, and we were not able to pull anything out of that.
Where is Professor Markel's vehicle at this point?
It is past the red light. It's already made it through the red light. Still heading south on
I
Thomas
literally
Road.
drive this road every single day.
And that's almost 10:48 a.m. Is that time correct at the bottom there?
Correct.
Okay, and now we're at 10:51 p.m. I'm sorry, a.m. Still bus 505. What will you pause it, please? What does the orange circle indicate here? Where are we, and what does the circle indicate?
We're still southbound on Thomasville Road. This intersection is Benton Road, which is where Winthrop Park is. Benton Road is where the cars are stopped at. In the left-hand turn lane on the far left side of the screen is the green Prius waiting to turn left on the Benton Road.
And is that
And Benton
a route
Road
to get
leads
to
straight to Trescott. which
Professor
is
Markel's
where the
residence on
victims
Trescott?
lived
That's
after.
correct.
All right, and that's 10:51 a.m.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll show you a little bit more of this. You'll see it turn off to the left. Little fella gets his bicycle.
All right, now have we gone to a different bus?
Yes, this is bus 707.
And what are we looking at on bus 707?
So this is northbound on Thomasville Road at Hermitage. This is at 10:55 a.m. and there's two lanes there. They're in the right-hand lane. The bus is in the right-hand lane, but the camera's on the outside of the bus looking backwards.
Look at these
So you'll
cameras.
see oncoming traffic coming
Like,
behind the
it's
bus.
just, I don't know. I saw this and I was just like, wow, I've got to share it with you guys because I know not everybody was watching the Adelson case, but this is what you
What do we see
call
here?
detectives
We see the green
and
Prius
really
pulling up
putting in
next to the
some good
bus.
work.
So this is 10:55. We last saw him at 10:51.
See, you can even see there's a
That
passenger.
narrower murder window down to that 4 minutes.
That's correct. This is north of the where the victim was, and this is coming from the victim's house.
So
I
this
think
is
we prepared a
after.
second clip if you just let it play through of that in slow motion. Tell us what we're supposed to be looking for in this clip.
So you can see inside the vehicle, even though it has tinted windows, you can see the driver's wearing dark clothes, but the passenger appears to have a long sleeve white shirt on, and he's very animated in the passenger seat. You can also see some distinctive features of the car.
Okay, I think we've got this highlighted here in a moment.
Just makes you think about Miss Betty and her testimony about the
So the
vehicle.
first one in the lower right-hand corner is what's called a tow hook cover. Vehicles in the bumper have some vehicles have a little plate in there that you can remove, and it has a metal hook inside of it, so a tow truck can hook to that metal hook and pull the car if it needs to. This particular vehicle is missing its tow hook cover. You can see there's a hole in the front bumper, so it's been removed and not been replaced. Also on the front windshield is a sun pass. It was affixed to the windshield. And then on the far left side of the screen is the black rear view mirror of the vehicle. Toyota Priuses made in those years had matching mirrors. The mirrors were painted with the car, same color of the car. And you can see in the video that the driver's side mirror was still painted, but the passenger side mirror was black, indicating it had been damaged and been replaced by an aftermarket mirror.
Okay. And what is a sun pass transponder?
Sun pass transponders are used primarily in South Florida, especially back then. We
Oh,
didn't
he
really
made
have
me
any
was
sun pass
sick after watching that.
toll booths up here, but they're used to pay for tolls going on toll roads, where you don't have to stop and pay cash on the toll booths. You can
So
pay
at the-
for it. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
You can pay for it in advance, assign it to your car, create an account, and affix it to your vehicle so you don't have to stop going through toll booths.
When you observed that it appeared there was a sun pass transponder on this vehicle back at this time, when did you obtain this video? Do you know?
This was back in 2014.
So just a little like backstory here, a little history of the area. We don't really have SunPass around here. I think we just recently had a toll road that's kind of like off its way. It's not in the main area over here where I don't know. You don't typically go on it unless you're coming from the outskirts of town and trying to get downtown. So sun passes back then, it was just like if somebody had one, then they probably were from out of town, probably, and coming up from down south, that type of thing. Um, I don't want to like make it too long today, but I do want to switch back over to the other detective and talk about that a little bit more. When it comes to the video footage and piecing this together, it reminded me of when Kessinger's father was asking in the interview with her, basically like, how long is this going to take? We need to get this done quickly. The whole point was the quicker they shut it down, then the less likely they were to, I think his words were misunderstand the circumstances or situations, I think was the word. And it just kind of goes back to show like, okay, well, what situations are you talking about? And I really believe it was the phone ping, the fact that she didn't clock in that morning. What route does she take to work? Do we have footage of her showing up at work that morning? What happens if she did not show up to Anadarko that morning? And so it's not on camera. She's not seen going into the building. That there goes her entire alibi at that point. So then where the heck was she? And by saying, "Oh, well, let's just pound this down and finish it out quickly so that people don't ask questions," the only other way that legally that would even remotely make some sort of sense is immunity. But even in this case, they grant partial immunity. And so, like, for instance, the defendant's sister had to testify against her brother, and it was her husband that was murdered. But her attorney had to go before the court and say, make sure that she was granted immunity for her that part of her testimony, so that in the event that she's charged in the future, they can't come back and use this testimony against her. So there there are technicalities, I guess, as to why certain things were not done or may have been pushed off. But I can tell you every interview I've had so far with law enforcement, it's been a big WTF, and they can't really understand why or how someone would conduct an investigation that way. And one of the main things that's been brought to my attention has been how the transcripts do not match up with the audio. And they say, I've been told it may not be verbatim. Like if there's a noise or if there's some mumbling, it may say mumbling and then continues on with transcribing the conversation. But how they generalize it in the notes is not when they're taking a testimony or a confession or anything like that, you should have it typed out exactly as it was stated. And those are the things that unfortunately make me believe that even if, by some small miracle that this Watts case was ever opened back up, I don't know that it couldn't stand up in court or hold up in court on its own, because it was just crap. It was crap. It was a crap job for lack of better words, because listening just to these two detectives and the work that these two different departments put into place, like I said, these testimonies have been used now in 4 trials. 4 separate individuals, all convicted of first-degree murder, in addition to 30-plus year sentences for conspiracy, solicitation, and more. So, and that's beyond just the hit. It's beyond the one who actually committed the crime. It is the one who committed the crime, the accomplice, the one who committed the crime's girlfriend, because she was also the girlfriend of the brother. And now that's all 4 of them, including the brother. And then now they've got 3 more. So, Adrian, that's a great point. Great point. And here's where I'll tell you, I do agree with you. But the thing is the only reason she knew where they were was she had to have been there. And I asked my friend about this because she said the only way someone is granted immunity is they had to have direct information. So not he said, she said type of stuff. It was either they were involved or they were there at the time the crime took place. And I don't disagree with that, because I feel like for him to say she wasn't supposed to be there, if he is talking about out at Survey 319 that Kessinger showed up at 319 instead of going into the office, and that's why she did not clock in that morning, then that puts her right there at Survey 319. He shows up with 3, bodies essentially, and now she's right there with them, and she's right in the mix of it. And then she goes and gets a hold of Daddy because she knows she's in some hot water. And that, in my opinion, is the only way that I can see that they gave her full immunity. And I went over in a previous video about partial and different types of immunities. But in this case here, they granted immunity that covered her for her testimony, so that her testimony cannot be used against her. But she also could not plead the 5th on cross. And so it was a very long trial, this one was, to watch. But I'm telling you, I watched the last one a couple years ago, and man, these detectives did their work on this case. They put the time in, they put the effort in. It took years. And like I said, we're at year 9 now to just get this 4th conviction. But I mean, the work and what they found was just unbelievable. So I want to finish up with the Sergeant Corbett's testimony, because he only has a little bit more left. But the Cellbrite and the cell phone triangulation, he's going to go over it a little bit more in detail. I agree, Adrian. Pretty nice. If you have questions along the way, just pop them in the comments. Whew, sorry, I have my mic muted. I am going to say this, guys. What he's about to share with you and what you're about to see is, what you're going to see is he's going to show you a connection And it is a 37-second connection where the phone actually just goes to voicemail. But the kicker is that the voicemail it goes to is the grandfather. Now, many people in this case have speculated whether or not the grandfather knew the whole story or not. Was it the whole family in on it, or was it just masterminded by the grandmother? And guys, he directly connects the hitman with the grandfather in a 37-second attempt that did not even go through, which, I don't know, a little mind-blowing there for me at least.
That were in the tower dumps with both all of the target numbers or subject numbers that we had obtained records for and all the people that they had talked to. We were able to kind of compare those two data sets to see if something would come out.
Okay, and what did you find?
We did, in comparing these, we did find a number that was common to the tower dump from the Premier Health and Fitness. And it was also a number that had been called or called into one of the subjects in the investigation.
And which subject was that?
That was Mr. Harvey Adelson.
And that's Charlie Adelson's father?
Yes.
Okay, can you show us that call? I want to ask you about the date and time and duration.
Yeah,
Okay,
so this,
go ahead.
sorry, July 1st of 2014. And while it looks like 3 events here, it's actually only 1 call. And this is something that we see in the records. There are a number of routing events that happen when the call is received. And in this case, there's an indication it was routed to voicemail. So that routing shows up as multiple events in the record. So while it looks like more, it is actually only a single phone call.
And what date was this call
Again,
on?
July 1st of 2014.
Okay. And what was the duration of the call?
The duration was 37 seconds.
So that was the time from the time the call connected to the time the call ended.
That's correct.
Okay. Could that be consistent with the 786 caller leaving a voicemail on Harvey Adelson's phone?
It could be, yes. All we know is that it was connected for 37 seconds, and there is the indicator of routing to voicemail.
Okay. Was there any other communication in the phone records between this 786 number and Harvey Adelson besides this one call, this one 37-second call?
There was not.
And who did the 786 number belong to?
The 786 number belonged to Mr. Sigfredo Garcia.
And so Sigfredo Garcia's number was consistent with being at Premier Gym at the same time of the victim. And that number having this 37-second call on July 1st to Harvey Adelson is what brought him to the forefront.
One way, yes.
Okay. And was Sigfredo Garcia linked to Charlie Adelson?
He was, yes.
Can you show us how?
So again, one of the main analysis that we do with phone records is what we call a frequency report.
This
or
is
just a simple
crazy.
report that tells us who a particular handset communicates with most frequently. Helps us identify people that are significant in their lives, maybe co-conspirators or other people. But again, we do that frequency report. So we looked at his frequency report, and at the very top, we had this number that ending in 1312, clearly communicated with a significant number of times by Mr. Garcia.
And who did the 786-1312 number?
So the
belong to?
1312 number was Miss Magbanowa's.
Okay, and for those who are not familiar with this case, Miss McBanowa was the brother's girlfriend who also had children with the hitman. So crazy circle, crazy, complete crap show, but holy bejesus.
Okay. And how was she linked to Charlie Adelson?
Again, looking at her frequency or who she communicated with the most, we see her second most frequent contact was a number ending in 9223.
And who did that 9223 number belong to?
That was Mr. Charlie Adelson.
Boom, the brother. I'm gonna pause it for just a second because I want to see it in chat, guys. Somebody comment to me, what do you think how they just did that snapshot with the phone numbers? Let's say Kessinger's phone pings that morning. Who do you think the first picture is? Who do you think the second picture is? Knowing what we know, about how Kessinger called Chris Watts, usually every morning. Jim, leave Jim alone. We've got her father. Like, if they were to have pulled her actual records and actually have gone through them, what story would that have told? And why in the world did they just listen to her when she said, leave Jim alone? I would love to see what you guys have to think, what you guys have to say, like what you think about that. Because we just listened to this officer literally take one phone call. It was a 37-second phone call. And he was able to take, with their team, of course, but he was able to take that one phone number, and it ultimately connected with the hitman. They made a connection there. And then the common phone call from, or commonly called number from that one was the other hitman. And then the other call was to the girlfriend, and the other call was to the brother, which ultimately then calls the grandmother. So, Debbie, to answer your question, I do believe she did. It was almost every single morning. Trying to think, Unmasked did a very, very good breakdown of it. But there is a consistent pattern with her where she called him around the same time every single morning. And the only time she did not call Chris Watts was the morning of the murders. And that just seems to get overlooked.
Who was another one of Sigfredo Garcia's top contacts besides Catherine McBanois?
So we did look at all of his contacts, or all the people in his frequency report, to attempt to identify who he may have been with. Going back to the tower dump return, we found that there was a phone number in the AT&T tower dump return, also from Premier, that number was also in Mr. Garcia's frequency report. So someone that he communicated with relatively frequently was also here in Tallahassee at the same time.
And who does the 8153 number belong to that was here at the same time?
That was Mr. Rivera's.
All right, looking at your next slide, does anyone else in this chart have phone contact with Sigfredo Garcia down at the bottom, or Luis Rivera right next to him, other than Catherine McBanois and that 137-second call between Garcia and Harvey Adelson on July 1st of 2014?
No.
Okay, so speaking of that July 1st, 2014, 37-second call, was it your understanding through this investigation that that call came after an incident where Garcia confronted McBanois and Charlie Adelson on July 1st when they were going to take out jet skis, and then Garcia left an angry voicemail on Harvey Adelson's phone?
Yes.
In looking at Charlie Adelson's iCloud, were there messages that reference the message left on July 1st?
There are, yes.
Okay. Can you show us those messages? Or yeah, what do we have here?
This is just a sample of the Cellbrite report that we've been talking about. We can see that this is just containing the one message.
I agree with that,
an example
Adrian.
of how the Cellbrite report looks and how we're able to go through and get information. For most of our summaries, we will convert those out into something that's a little bit easier to read. You can see that the print's kind of small and there's all kinds of information in there. So when we do these summaries of the text.
So guys, I think I'm gonna stop it here. But even in this section, what they're getting into is they did speak in code. And I know that that's something that has been brought up in the Watts case. And, you know, people are like, oh, this is just reaching, it's a bit too much. Or, you know, some people just have to create different issues or make stuff up. And part of the whole reason for even sharing a different case with you with regards to the phone ping and just the different ways of gathering and collecting the evidence and all of the things. It's really and truthfully just trying to share with you that it is possible. And it does happen. It's not too far fetched. And something that has really kind of stood out to me lately is we live in a world where we see so much online and like on phones and things like that, that we've always been taught to believe there's make believe, there's pretend. And I think everything started shifting with filters, and we're getting to a point where does what you see, or is what you see really what you see? And it's almost to a point where you're starting to um, question whether or not it's real or not. I don't know if any of you have seen any of the TikToks and stuff, but it's like you'll watch a video and they're acting, but you can't tell if it's like if they're acting or if they're really trying to create a TikTok. And it took me a while to realize that, oh my gosh, there are people acting on these TikTok. Like it's not just a random like, oh, I'm making a video of myself kind of stuff. It's like full blown, putting something together. And well, why does that matter? And to me, it matters because I feel like probably one of the most insulting things that some people in law enforcement will say, and you'll hear it often, is, oh, well, we don't have the capabilities of what they do on TV. Well, I straight up call BS because they have to get those ideas from somewhere. And cases like this, you realize very quickly it does happen and they do have the capabilities. Now, will they make the same efforts and work for someone who's not, say, a law professor? Because I'll tell you this much, we have a lot of gun violence in this area. And it's like, depending on who the victim is, you'll hear a lot about it in the news, or you won't hear anything. Or you'll hear a quick arrest was made, and in others, you won't hear a word. And I don't, do I see that as an issue like day to day? I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention to it, but it has caught my attention as far as looking at crime rates and what's driving it. And I think I forget what, it's probably like an ID channel show or something, but one of the psychologists was talking about how, back in the day, you used to meet somebody at the flagpole. If if you got upset with them, you'd tussle a little bit and then you'd go on about your day and you'd be done. And these days, the level of violence has escalated so much. And it's one of those things where if we don't address the problems at home and we don't address the problems within each of ourselves, then the issues are only going to get more intricate and more deeper and darker. And it's no longer going to look like something out of a movie, because life is starting to look like a whole freaking series in some cases. And so I don't know, I would challenge you just to be mindful of your surroundings, of course, and be careful. But at the same time, one thing I'd like to address that I see quite often in the comments, and it just drives me bonkers, is when people say, well, how could somebody do X, Y, and Z? Like, how, poor so and so. And this is I tread very lightly even in this case, because no one deserves anything like what happened to Danny Markell, and nobody deserves no one deserves to lose their life. But the whole concept of the victim is faultless that's an area where we're really doing a disservice too, because the parts of and I mentioned it to one of the viewers earlier, and I do believe we'll hear more about um, the custody battle in this Adelson case once they go after, in the event that they go after the wife. I think we'll hear a lot more when it comes to that. But like they were going back and forth, and it was bad. And he was really nasty to her. She was really nasty to him. Um, yeah, I agree. Society is jaded and brutalized. And honestly, everyone's taught that, only your feelings matter. And, um, especially behind keyboards and things like that, like just really taking like the humanistic side of things, it gets thrown out the window. And so for someone to think that a random 7 people would be in on a crime, like hiring a hitman for one person, 7 guys. It's not too far-fetched for people to ask questions about 2 or 3 in the Watts case. You have 7 who 4 of which have been found guilty, the other 3 still pending, and that was for one victim. In the Watts, you had 2 children, a wife, and she was pregnant. And to think that one person did all of that in the time frame that he had with little to no evidence left at home, and no one saw anything at all, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. And so, do I think that Kessinger was given immunity? Absolutely. Do I think it was her and her father's first rodeo with some sort of immunity? No. But I think, that's probably a whole nother video. But anyway, I just wanted to just share some thoughts with you about the phone ping, share with you what it actually looks like to have detectives on the stand giving detailed explanations about the phone pings, how they triangulated them, and basically using the cell towers that they bounced off of, they were able to get city bus video footage and watch the suspects literally drive practically to the guy's front door. When you see that car turn left on Benton, it's less than 100 feet before you turn left again on Trescott. And then that's the road that the victim's house was on. So they managed to track this car from the gym down to his, practically turning on the road. And then they were able to capture them after the murder took place on the way out. And you could clearly see that there was a passenger. And again, just for those who kind of came in a little bit later, I shared with everyone earlier, something I learned from my interview with law enforcement is that those intersection cameras that you see that people have questioned, why did they not provide any kind of footage for the Watts in the Watts case? I learned that much like the toll road cameras, there has to be essentially like an order generated. So there has to be a request put in for, look for this make, model, color, tag number. And then once that's initiated, then the cameras will record through a certain time period. But unless there's like a bolo with a tag number or a car description available, then those cameras are not recording. So that is pretty solid explanation as to why we did not see any cameras or any footage of Watts driving away from the house or even coming back home that day from the intersection cameras. So I think I'm going to wrap it up, guys. If you're here, thank you so much for staying and hanging out. I hope you enjoyed it. I was trying to do a little something different, just to catch up with everybody and share with you the other case that I've been consumed with lately that has definitely, it's had my attention, but it's also just really raised some questions and answered some that I had even for the Watts. So thank you guys so much. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful evening, and you guys pray for me because these night shifts, I'm loving it. I started a new job and I absolutely love it, but definitely having to get back into a night shifter routine. That's for sure. But anyway, thanks guys so much for the support. I appreciate you. And until next time.